Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. Here we are, and I have employed the expensive mood lighting yet again. Actually, they are actually. Guess what's becoming the most expensive thing in South Africa at the moment? Yes, candles. Candles and paraffin price going through the roof. I wonder why. We're on our 27 of this current power cut, and over the weekend we had back end of last week into this weekend we have 52 hours off. So electricity is a wonderful thing that some countries seem to enjoy. But anyway, enough of that. We are honoured to have Alan with us. Alan, you, our favourite Canadian vlogger person. I've got to be a bit careful defining it too sharply because I've failed to actually meet a nasty Canadian in my days. I've only met one. No.
He hasn't seen my drone hater videos before, has he?
Yeah, there you go. That's fine. That's cool. Yeah. But well, let's start with Canada. Let's start with MAAC Canada. Let's start with that's the Model Aeronautical Aviation Association. I can't remember what it is now. I can't remember what it stands for. They put out, and I cannot believe they did this. Hello, Rev B. I can't believe they did this in the modern world. They put out an email to the members which said, "Don't tell anyone this because it could put us in work." In the modern digital age, how did they not think it was going to arrive in several people's inboxes? I just don't know. But if it's to be believed, and I can only say it has to remain to be believed because I have reached out to them and I've reached out to NAV Canada, and I have had no response other from NAV Canada than your messages has arrived and we'll get back to you soon. Well, that soon's still happening 2 days later. So I can only suggest that their lack of willingness, I was hoping they were going to just email back and say, "You're talking rubbish. That was a practice email for something." And that, of course, that's not going to happen. How could that ever happen? But sadly, their lack of response tells me, or am I wrong? Am I wrong to think that their lack of response is an admission of guilt? I don't know. Anyone want to jump in on that? I've ranted too long. No one wants to jump in. So the story is they're going to ground model aircraft flying in Canada until they've sorted out a little issue that they've had.
Well, I somebody who's been grousing about this for just years, and I know that, you've had to endure it. Gary, I mean, who would think that this would ever have been an eventuality? I mean, I think back about 20 years ago. Look, he's got a light in the window for his wandering boy.
John said lamp, but I've run out of paraffin, so it's candles. But anyway, back to you.
And these organizations wonder why nobody wants to be members. I mean, it's the same with AMA. I don't think that the word is totally out, but even the CBO thing could have been nipped in the bud back in 2008, 2009, when the world's leading civil aviation authority said that they were going to write the rules for the hobby. I mean, this has all been coming for years and years and years. And I think we're getting at the sad end of the bitter end of the sad rope.
Well, pushback. Yeah. Well, how much? I mean, Alan, you're in country now. Alan, you're in Canada, and you probably represent a much larger group of airspace users, drone users. I, as I said in what I wrote, I suspect there are more than 13,000 DJI flyers in Ottawa alone. And the fact that the MAAC only has 13,000 members really surprised me. And to my mind, they've missed an opportunity to embrace, what should we say, normal not people that haven't come from the model aircraft world into the world of small flying things world. Back to you, Aaron.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, just for me, when I first started out, I started to fly in open fields. Some of them actually were MAAC fields. Now, you had some people that were okay, like saying, fantastic, we like people flying more items, whether it's a model aircraft or a drone. But from my experience, a lot of people in that organization really hate people who fly drones in general. I know one experience from a person. he actually wanted to start flying drones. He had a DJI. His first thing in terms of wanting to get practice was to go to a MAAC club. And he asked them at first, he phoned them, oh, I'd like to start flying drones. And apparently the MAAC person was really excited at first, saying, oh, fantastic. What do you fly? And he goes, a DJI Spark at the time. And then immediately his tone changed. He's like, oh, you're one of those. And so ever since then, the guy has been struggling to try to find, I guess, a club. And fortunately, there was one club that actually welcomed drones, but that's the exception. And even nowadays, a lot of those fields that you've seen me fly before, like Bruce, you might be familiar with some of them when I started, there's actually signs now. They say, no drones at all. So they're completely pushing people away. Like, why? A person like me, I would embrace it too, saying, I'd recommend people go there, fly, practice. It's safe. You probably encourage more people. But now, as you see that they divided everyone, if this is true too, where they don't have, I guess, permission to fly the field, I'm just wondering, can Transport Canada use that as an excuse now and say, hey, you guys can't regulate yourselves. Now we're going to put you in the same bucket as everyone else now. And you could have had all of us, I guess, supporting each other, saying, if we're doing nothing wrong, it's perfectly safe. We should all be able to, fly for fun, capture videos, whatever it may be, in a responsible way.
Yeah, I think the big problem, they should be
also.
Well, they should be stopping the amount of police from flying their drones. They're the biggest danger in Canada.
Yeah, the ones that had the accidents.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Dan's also in Canada, and there's his numbers: 76,711 basic license and 9,160 advanced pilots in Canada. Now, can I now take 9,000 odd off the 76,000? Would you have to have your basic before you get your advanced? So. Anyway, however it pans out, the 13,000 members of the MAAC, that doesn't seem so great anymore, does it? When you put it in that context.
And plus, that number does not include people who are flying micro drones, for example. Every time I walk out, so many people are flying things like minis and stuff nowadays. So that's a huge base of people that you're excluding as well.
It's I've got this is my finger when I'm doing the comments. Here comes my finger. It's RC clubs are mostly old farts. Like, yeah, well, John, yes, but then are they really? I mean, there can't be that many of them left, can there?
You'd be surprised.
Would I? Oh, okay. Well, I would be shocked because, we are, all of us here are, well, apart from Alan, old farts, and we all fly drones and model aircraft, and we don't have a gripe with it.
Well, I think he hit on a point, though, because, and I'm sure we've all seen this, and over the years, you've had the love-hate relationship between the modelers and the droners. And I've seen that here. We don't want that at our field. We don't want, we don't want this at our field. We don't want that at our field. Oh, wait, you want to pay dues? Oh, come on. Get in here. Why did you say so? Exactly. And then even when you thought you were going to have a situation where you were going to have paid members, they love the droners. Come on down. Military, you want to test DOD systems here and you want to pay? Come on down, You just want to sit around and grouse and not pay and want to use the field, but no one to talk to you.
The other number that's missing. Well, the other number that's missing there is a number of people who fly without any kind of pilot registration or anything. They just flout the rules. And we don't know how big that group is, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a lot bigger than most people think. And the thing that annoys me most about this whole thing is that the MAAC group are not the problem group. Why does MAAC need to have a special exemption to fly? This is the hobby that's been flying traditional model aircraft for many, many decades without being any problem to anybody. Why did they need to impose these rules on them if they're trying to control drone use? Because these guys aren't flying drones.
Well, but all right, let's try and go another way that way. My thinking, because my thinking never works, But if you are in charge of an organization that has to look after and has been following what's happening around the world with drone regulation, model aircraft regulations, you would cross the T's and dot the I's on all your paperwork, surely. And you would make sure that your flying sites were compliant wherever they were. You'd say, hello, Dave, at whatever field in whichever town in Canada, have you got your stuff in order? and you'd make sure. Surely you'd make sure, and perhaps I don't know. I don't know if Dan or Alan want to be drawn on this, but I wonder if, and what is the app that the guys, the model, maybe you don't use it at all, Alan, but the model aircraft guys have got a planning app in it. And I see in the, I see, and it's 35 Canadian dollars a year if you quote this number. And in the blurb, it says it must have a working GPS. I wonder if that app has outed people and where exactly they've been flying. And yeah, they were MAAC sites, but nobody did the homework or paperwork to check. Sorry, I went along again then.
Yeah, well, you got a big bag there, Gary, but this is some of the stuff that I've been talking about for years. Okay, first off the bat, I'm not Canadian, I'm an American, but it's like, this used to be something that I could go and do and recreate and for my enjoyment, and I wouldn't be hurting anyone. What has happened here is everybody has kind of gone along with the madness for a crack at some money. And not only, the model people, but the people that are selling the DJI stuff, and then also these people with the apps. And so here's the situation. I don't want to sign up for an app to find out if I can go fly my electric foamy or whatever. And this thing has gotten totally out of hand as far as I'm concerned. Same deal, making sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted and all the rest of that. Here in the United States, I mean, if you're going to be a CBO, are all your flying sites going to have to be ADA? I don't know if you guys have, I doubt you have Americans with Disabilities Act, but most public facilities that have restrooms and everything else, they have to be in compliance, so people in wheelchairs and people with disabilities can get there and access it all and use the bathrooms and all the rest of this stuff. It is just such a bureaucratic nightmare to go fly an electric foam aircraft. And this all could have been nipped in the bud, point of sale registration. Nobody wanted it because they didn't want to chill the sales on the DJI drones. Again, when we had the registration task force here in the United States, no one stood up for the hobbyist. They let them go right down the tubes. They want to sell DJI drones. They want to sell cell phone apps so you can get into the NAS and do your reservation with your Lance and all the rest of that stuff. It's all profit motivated. And those people said they were our friends. They were all RC hobbyists, all the rest of that. They sold everyone out for a chance to make some money. The funny thing with the apps over here, these people aren't making any money. They're burning VC money. You can't have an ROI on free, but they're just hoping that eventually that regulation is going to get to the point where you have to pay $35 a year for the app, and then I'm going to make money. It's going to be great. Now, it's a tragedy.
Before I go, because some of my friends can't see the comment, Dover Self Planes. I'm sorry, I've scrolled up and I can't quite remember your handle. But Dan earlier, and I'll put it up, this is the important numbers to remember. So you say, are the new rules because of drones or GPS drones? Well, but there's the bottom line. There are 13,000 MAAC members and 76,000 basic licenses and 9,000 advanced drone licenses in Canada. So they actually outnumber you. I also fly sailplanes and love flying model sailplanes. It's my thing. I don't think it's fair to put this one on, and we're biased. We talk about drones, so I am being biased. I don't think this is fair to put it on the drone community. I think if it's true, if it happens, all I say is MAAC have not denied or have not responded at all, and nor's NAV Canada. So I can only suggest that email is right. And then I would also, again, I'm ranting it again, I am just bemused that they say top secret, don't tell anyone. It's 2022 in the digital age.
Surely not all their fields are within control of airspace. Surely they just shut those ones down. Why the whole lot? Or are they just perhaps they haven't even got the paperwork themselves? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so what? So is there something bigger lying in the wings that they're really afraid of, or are they just fully bending over to NAV Canada?
And why does it always happen just before Christmas, eh? Drones and Christmas. What is it about drones and Christmas?
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're not giving Alan a chance, and he is the duty Canadian in this conversation.
It's all your fault, Alan.
Yeah, it's your fault.
I don't know what could it be at this point, because I just heard it from you guys, for example, like with this message. Could it be that they know like Transport Canada is really going after them now too, and now they're trying to use this as a way to say, hey, look, we can manage ourselves, we can police ourselves, we can shut down our whole club if we want, so just leave us alone. Like, is there some kind of threat that I'm unaware of right now that's going on in the model community?
But would that be a logical way of doing it? Would you just like, well, all right, we'll sort it out, and then go away again, please? I mean, is that the right way to deal with the regulator?
How much does it cost to be a part of this organization?
That yearly? I don't know about that, because I've never joined the actual club, but I don't believe it's that expensive yet.
Oh my God, our expert here.
Because I told you before, I was interested in their groups and so forth, but then they said no, like they don't like drones and so forth. They just want, for example, people to fly model aircraft. So why would a person like me join?
What Dan says is dead right. I mean, why is it that no regulator anywhere in the world can actually tell the difference between a foam model of a Piper Cub and a DJI Mavic? How come they're so stupid they can't tell the difference, and the different operating parameters and risk profiles? Why do they choose not to tell the difference? That's the question I want to answer. Well, I want them to answer.
Well, let me just say, somebody just put up that it cost $80 a year. Mm-hmm. I'd be pissed. What am I paying you for? I mean, if you don't want to do this, I did same deal with the AMA. These guys laughing and chuckling, and nobody really cares. And we'll see what happens. And yet, it's like, okay, if you want to do that, that's cool. But then this is all a volunteer deal. Should you be making $600,000 or a six-figure salary, $100,000 a year, so you can send me some email that you're supposed to say, well, don't share this? I mean, it shows you the quality of the representation you've been getting, and it's poor. It's very poor. It's very upsetting. I'd be very upset.
Alan, can you fill us in? What is the weather like in Canada? Is it actually practical to fly at this time of the year in Canada?
It's snowing a lot right now, so it's really cold. So I would imagine things like the batteries, they die pretty quickly. So it's probably not ideal for flying a model aircraft. It's more for scenery, I would say right now, if you want to capture things like the snow. But there's no issue in general. If you have like your own open field, like what they do, I wouldn't see any issue why they wouldn't fly for fun.
So what did somebody said that they pay the fee so they don't have to pay the fee to Canada or to the CAA up there? How much is the yearly fee?
To unpack. Yeah, I want to unpack that point as well. So you Alan, you've got this basic license or the advanced license, I assume.
Yep.
What did that cost you?
Well, the license itself, you'd have to first do the actual test, which could be a couple of dollars. But then to get the advanced license, you had to actually go through one of these schools. So once you do like a live test, that they charge whatever. It could be like $250, $500. And then from there afterwards, you just have to do this yearly catch up, for example. You can do it for free. But that's for like people that want to fly with the advanced. If you just want to fly something like a micro drone currently, that's outside of all these regulations, then you don't need to go through any of this. So if you want to fly like a Mavic Mini, then someone could just go outside literally and start flying for fun.
So the exemption requirement. So to fly a large model sailplane, would that come under the advanced setting, or wouldn't it be in there at all?
Well, normally it would be weight-based. So any drones over 250 grams, then you'd need the basic license. But to my understanding with this MAAC club, for example, if you're part of the organization, you fly within their fields, then they're exempt. You're basically abided by their personal rules. So if that guy there says, hey, it's dangerous for you to do this, you better not do this, then they could kick them out of the club. And then if they get kicked out, then they would have to abide by these basic and advanced rules under Transport Canada, as an example.
Sounds like duress to me. I don't like it. I think this whole program stinks.
Yeah,
and I can see why the MAAC or whatever this group was went along with it. Family program. Horse stuff.
Well, Squishy's saying this, but we are the old guys now. So surely part
Speak
of
for
this
yourself.
should be a, well, yes, it's particularly me. So does it come to the point that a lot of old droning geeks need to go and make sure they join clubs to help bring the droning community in and help protect model aircraft flying? Move the committee out of the way. That's too a utopian way of thinking, isn't it?
Why do I want to join a club? I don't know how it is in the respective countries where you are. I'm working 2 jobs. I live here in California. I got to work 2 jobs to afford to live here. I do not have time to join clubs and groups and volunteer and do all the rest of that stuff so I can go fly a 1 pound piece of foam. I mean, if I'm going to volunteer, I want to volunteer to help people's lives who are, hungry or need housing or something else. Not
sure
to fly something in the park. It's just it's ridiculous, and it makes me think that most of these people, the bureaucrats or whatever, are working this $40 a week gig for too much money, and they've got too much free time on their hands, thinking they got to do this extracurricular stuff to do something that's really safe and innocuous. And it really makes me it's upsetting. I mean, what's happened to the world? I mean, I guess I am old. You whippersnappers.
Call me a cynic, but I watched Transport Canada brought in some really, really draconian rules. There's virtually nowhere you could fly in Canada. This is textbook stuff. You bring in really, really tough rules, and then you back off, and people go, "Oh, this is much better." When if you'd brought in those rules in the first place, people would have said, "We're not having it." So you push the wedge right in, then you pull it out a bit, and people go, "Oh, that's so much better." That's exactly what I think they did in Canada.
Well, it goes back to, we've talked about it on the program before, that the people at CAA UK and even Transport Canada were approachable and pragmatists. I mean, Karen Tarr up there at Transport Canada, when, it was like, hey, we want to come up there and fly a 75-foot blimp. Oh, sounds good. Tell us what you want. Here you go. You want a TFOC? Oh, great. We're going to work with you. And now you got like this new crop of folks come in, and they don't understand the technology. They don't understand science. They don't understand risk. And they just come in and throw the brakes on. Nope, can't have that, even though we've been doing it for years. And that other notion that this hobby has changed and capabilities have changed, and nobody was out there doing this stuff. That is a load of, again, horse stuff, because hundreds of thousands of people have been out here flying aircraft, FPV, the gliders. That was another, remember that, Gary? I mean, you're a glider guy. Oh, we were only, you could only fly to 400 feet. I mean, these guys were flying 4,000, 6,000, 8,000, So don't tell me we had new capabilities. Everybody went along with this, and it was a profit motive. There was no safety. There was no data that said, hey, we got to do something here. They just wanted to do something for profit, and they threw the brakes on for no reason. And it is kind of the lobster in the pot thing, like Bruce is talking about. But realistically, I have to go back, and from personal experience, when the FAA head of ATC comes in and says, we're writing the rules for the hobby, not going to be good, not in my airspace, yada, yada. That was the time to jump up like a big dog. But again, they were bought off. Oh, you're going to be the CEO. People will have to be a member to be able to fly like they do now for like freedom out here in the park. So there's a profit motive there. When you think about 1 million members paying $75 a year, that's a lot of money. I can, pay myself $500,000, $600,000 a year, like the guy over there at AUVSI, and do nothing. It's great. You can't fly, but that's no skin off my nose. I don't care. And I'm off the soapbox.
Yeah.
Sorry.
In fact, it's the technology has changed, the capabilities have changed, but for the better. Models are lighter. The radio control links are far more resilient. The safety features, we've got fail-safe and things we never had before. It is now far safer than it ever was. So where is the justification for the increased restriction and regulation? There is none. And that's what annoys me most about these regulators. They all talk safety, which is a complete and utter lie, because if it was safety, all these regulations would be backed up with statistical data and risk assessments that validated everything they've done, but there's not a sign of any of that.
You are right. Remember that that used to be like the last vestige of the poor pilot. Oh, the radio hit. That's why I crashed. And then when the multispectral radios came in, you really couldn't say that anymore. You had to just fess up to being a crappy pilot.
Let's just go through a couple of comments here. Johnny's right. Gliding, that's the only way forward. All the rest is rubbish, including that FPV nonsense. But anyway, the circulate, the CBO side, because we can bring this into the CBO side of things as well. In America, I think it's happy days this week that there are now 3 CBOs. That's a good thing. And as Doveran says, you don't actually have to be a member of the CBO, but you do have to select the one you like and fly according to whatever their set of rules. They don't call it rules, do they? I can't remember what they call it.
Safety programming. But there's another thing. They can't now they cannot change their safety programming without it being signed off by the FAA, or they lose their CBO status.
And the other thing that was going to happen here is the AMA, they thought the way that they were going to do the structure, it would be just like the RTCA or ASTM model, where you would have to get their yearly safety regulations would be like a standard. So just like you're saying, Bruce, if it changes, you got to change it and you got to have it. Now, I don't know if they'll be able to do that, but just remember that there was a profit margin. Oh, and somebody disagreed with me, but I can't. Dave here disagreed with me.
Dover cell planes. Now that I've not seen you commenting on it. No skin in the game is a bit of an old sore on this channel. I think perhaps if I want to agree with you, I think the perception of the danger of GPS drones has changed things. But as has Bruce has said, aero modeling has become safer. I'm surprised Mark hasn't chipped in. This is very BMFA.
I think he's gone to sleep.
Well. Is he gone to sleep? Yeah, fair enough.
To address Dover cell planes, the GPS drones have changed the situation, which again is why I say, why have the regulators not singled out the cause of the problem? Why have they just lumped all the traditional hobby in as well? They've deliberately chosen not to stratify the risk. They've said, oh, you're all the same. It's like if we had people, riding, I don't know, high-speed motorbikes up and down the freeways and causing problems. Would you then pass regulations that affected bicycles as well? Because they've both got 2 wheels. You don't. You stratify your regulations proportional to risk, and the risk of the traditional hobby is very proven low over many, many decades. So why are you now you must be over-regulating them, because you're regulating them as if they were GPS-assisted drones that anyone could take out of a box and fly. That is unreasonable. The hobby should never have accepted that. They should have pushed right back, pushback. They should have done that, but they didn't. They chose to take their 30 pieces of silver to get the special privileges of being a CBO in the USA or having an exemption in Canada and other places. It's like they're being bought off. The hobby bodies have been bought off, played on their own self-interest, and that is a really bad blow against the hobby as a whole thing.
I have to say Bruce is right. There's something.
No, you don't have to say that. You don't have to say that.
Something's gone on here with what we know as PDRA01. So a CA operational authorization here. PDRA01 has been rewritten. CA have written a cap for it, and it's going to change the way we can operate under the CA operational authorization in built-up areas and stuff to a degree. And they consulted some stakeholders. Now, I don't know who those stakeholders were, but I'm willing to place a bet. They weren't the drone community and they weren't the modeling community. The BMFA is kind of, I think, that they're being nice with the CA because they've had their little tit and tat before now. So I think, that hobby side, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of Everyone's just kind of playing nice. They got Article 16, so they're happy. But here's the really crazy thing. So, and this is kind of sad but true. So I think there's been over 60,000 operators issued to UK operators. Like you get a UAS number. So I'm 312. So I was like the 312th person to get one in the UK for flying under PDRA 01 or the PFCO or PFAW, whatever you want to call it. And during the time I've had that, in the 10, 12 years or something now that I've had that, a commercial operation or drone has killed absolutely no one. In commercial operations, we've had no deaths. Now, sadly, if you was to do the same numbers under hobby, now there are more hobby flyers, granted, a lot more. There have been 1 or 2 incidents and accidents, as we know, only a few, but they're using the hobby side to say, oh, because of the one-to-one separation works for the hobby, we should bring that to the commercial world. But that's not right, because the commercial world has been safe. There's no data point for them to say that X amount of people will be killed per year, A, B, C, you know what I mean? Yeah, in the hobby side, you could say, okay, once every 10 years, someone may be accidentally, you know, there could be an accident involving a human that's going to be bad. But you might say that's 1 every 10 or 20 years in the hobby side. In the commercial side, you can't say that because there's no data yet. We've got no data point. It's so hard.
We went along to get along. I mean, even this 250 grand deal, they could have said no. I talked to Nancy Egan about it, and I talked to Brendan Shulman about it. You could have just said no. We're not going along with it. Oh, that was only going to be for this and registration, and then it wasn't going to matter, and we wouldn't. Well, that's not true. And I said, you established a baseline. So what you had is representation that stunk. Unqualified people. They just wanted to sell drones. So even right here and then, you had Walmart and you had Best Buy on that drone registration task force with the 250 grams. And they even said, okay, well, we could do, point of sale registration. Walmart, Best Buy, no, we don't want that. Oh, okay. And everybody else got lumped in. AMA, dissenting opinion. All of the people that were supposedly our seers and your friends and all the rest of that would not support the AMA. Nope, but we're not even going to sign on to that letter, and we're not going to sign on to that letter because we had a sidebar with the FAA who told us what they needed. It was the same thing with Section 336. 336, FAA said, hey, you're not going to be able to fly beyond visual line of sight unless we can do this RID thing. So we want this repealed. And all of those people with the apps and the Commercial Drone Alliance and AUVSI and all the rest of that crap paid their lobbyists to lobby Congress to get rid of Section 336. So all I have to say is, when people are upset about their freedoms being taken away, all your buddies that are making money off of you sold you right out. And that's all there is to it. This is not something that's unsafe. That's all there is to it. It hasn't been. Hundreds of thousands of people have been doing it. The drone thing has created a problem. Yes, you address the problem. You don't just throw a blanket on the whole party. As far as I'm concerned,
it's gone crazy. It just really has. And
totally,
these people that are so-called stakeholders or lobbyists or whatever, that obviously they are not out for us people. They are not out for anyone sat here at all. They don't care one iota about us. They don't care about the 180,000 drone operators in the UK. They don't care about all the ones in America, in the USA or Canada or New Zealand or wherever we are, because those big boys that are lobbying, those big stakeholders are after one thing: the airspace to themselves. They want us gone. And they've got the chit chat and the connections, and they can go up to like the CAA or the DFT in the UK or the FAA and just
around him.
Oh, yeah, around and just go.
No, around him. But that comment around Patrick. Let's see. I don't want to poke Patrick in the head. I just want to refer to that comment there.
You're not going to compete with. Okay, so
money.
Even the
show the
AMA,
card again, Bruce.
Even the AMA and the repeal of Section 336. I mean, other people and myself contacted them before. Hey, look, they're gunning for you. They're coming for you. And the same thing with the drone registration. And they laughed it off. No. We talked to the FAA. We know what we're doing. So all these people have sold you out for a salary or some VC funding. And I've talked about it before, even here in the United States. We are definitely at the point where you could start with some fact sheets, one-pagers, and you could grassroots and go to Congress and say, hey, the data just doesn't support it. I'm sorry, but this isn't as dangerous as they're making it out to be. It's costing the taxpayer millions and millions of dollars, and that would be easy to. I don't even know what the new budget is for the UASIO over at the FAA. It's millions, tens of millions of dollars a year they're spending on this. And it's unnecessary. Will there never be a death? No, I'm not going to say that, because we know there will be. Any human, any human action usually causes a death. You can eat too much sugar around Christmas and, get diabetic and die. But the thing is I don't care. I can't think of one group on the planet, and I'm going to malign everybody right now. I don't care who they are. The commercial drone this or the drone user or what. Horse crap. They sit there like good little boys and girls and nod because they're afraid of the FAA or the CAA maligning them or cutting them out, or I'm not going to be on the committee, and then I won't have people kissing my butt on Facebook telling me how great I am. I've been a professional grouser for the last 20 years, right, Gary? How much hate mail have you got?
Yes, yes, I was going to say you have created. Oh, but I tell you, there's another story. Not as much hate mail as that Made in India drone story did last week. That created massive hate mail for me, and it was me. It wasn't you. But that's another thing altogether.
Cut in on my action.
That was but that for the first time, that was Twitter wanted to pull that, Mastodon wanted to pull it, Reddit had complaints. Every single place I put that, I got complaints from. So that really proves just how politically connected. That's the most complaint. Even DJI didn't complain as much as the Indian drone industry has. I thought that was just very, very, very interesting. Very interesting.
Touched a nerve.
I think we did.
Yeah, but I see that like people in the comments saying, there's only a small number of us. We don't have the power. Well, actually, you do have some bargaining power because all these regulations are enforced by consent. And if you go and say, as a group, as all 13,000 Canadians from MAAC went together and said to the Transport Canada, these are what we want. This is what we want. We don't want an exemption. We just don't want to be covered by those rules. We'll have our own rule set. And if you don't want to accommodate us, then we will not comply with your rules. And you've got a really big problem. You don't have enough enforcement people out there. And if you are committed to keeping the airspace safe and you believe we are a risk, hence the regulation, then you need to have our compliance. So let's sit down around a table and come up with something that suits everybody. They've got to take a hard stand. I mean, if you saw my last video, I'm one guy and I backed down an entire council because I took a stand. These people don't usually expect to have pushback. They expect that I'm important, you'll do as we say because that's the way the world works, and to hell with your rights. But if you push back, sometimes it shocks them so much that they'll actually stop and think and do the right thing.
And can we get that? It's true. And can we get Alan? Alan, can you please speak to that basic license again for Dover sales planes?
Oh, okay. To get a basic license, it's pretty straightforward, minus the really dumb questions, unless they change a little bit of it. Essentially, you just pay like a few dollars and you do this open book test. They ask you some questions about airspace, where you can fly and so forth. And once you get a basic license, that's for drones if you want to fly over 250 grams. So if you want to fly something like a DJI Mini, for example, you don't need this. This is more for if you want to fly, like, say, a Mavic 3, for example, a larger drone. So it's pretty simple in that case, but the issue is in terms of saying that's the way to go forward. Even though you have the basic license, you're still restricted in many ways. For example, you can't fly within a certain distance of another person. So, for example, if there's like a bystander, imagine you just want to capture literally some kind of scenery. Now you have to keep away, for example, 30 meters away from this person. Or let's pretend you're in a special event. You could be literally, I don't know, like a block away. You can't fly and just capture it as a camera either. So you're still restricted. That's why I don't think this is the right way to do it. You need more of a common sense approach, in my opinion, with how most people are using these types of things nowadays.
The problem that I have with this is it's not about safety. The open book test is not about safety. All that is so you can implicate yourself. So when they do come down on you, you knew. Well, you took the test. Yeah. You signed the paper. Now we can fine you. It's not about safety. Everybody bought into that. It's about safety crap. Garbage.
Now,
it's not about safety.
Imagine this too, where somebody wants to fly, let's just say a drone for fun, FPV drone, they want to fly around a field. Technically here, if you're flying, let's just say a drone that's over 250 grams, the law here says you're supposed to keep like a logbook. Every time you fly, the time, every time you crash, you want to repair it, replace the propellers. Like, what is this? It's like you're driving a huge car or a huge manned aircraft. So in general, I don't think people actually consider that. A lot of people would say, oh, who cares? It's a couple of bucks. Do this test. Did you read like what they actually expect you to do when you actually like fly this stuff?
So that's the big advantage of the MAAC membership route then, is that you don't have to comply with all that paperwork for your normal flying. And I'm sure MAAC members probably in their code of conduct, they probably keep those sort of distances away from people anyway. I think model aviation authorities generally do.
Where's the fun in that?
Well, where's it exactly? But that's the key, I think, is that you don't have to comply with the paperwork restriction. And now, what does Dan say? Oh, well, we'll have this one, and then sorry, go on. I'm stop someone then.
Well, no, but this is you are explaining the profit motive and me as an association going along with this horse crap. Oh, well, why would people want to join my CBO? Oh, well, you don't have to do the paperwork. So if you pay me the $80 a year, you can come over here and you just, do whatever you want to do. And that's the profit motive for the hobby group to sell you right out.
And how does paperwork make it safer?
It doesn't.
Yeah, but
it just makes it an incentive.
You don't have to be a member of a CBO. You don't have to be a paid up member of the CBO.
How does that even make sense?
Because if they catch you, how does that even make sense? But if they catch you flying out, you have to say, I identify as...
This is in the USA.
In the USA, we're talking about America here. I identify as a flight test CBO sort of a pilot, and then therefore I follow their rules. So if they find you outside of the flight test rule set, then they can nobble you. If they turn up to cuff you and they say, which CBO do you fly under? And you say, what's a CBO? Then you're also going to be in trouble then. And you've got to take that, what's that basic test in America? I can't remember what the safe test, trust test. And I recommend taking that with the Boy Scouts of America. Should you need to take that trust test, seems to be the way to go. Because that's
wouldn't that show intent?
What do you mean? Very good. Yes, I see what you did there.
But here's the other problem that you have here is all of these CBOs, right? So in the United States of America, there are no liability limits on aviation fatalities. Okay. So the other thing is that I don't know if everybody's done their due diligence, talked to their attorneys, or have their insurance, but technically I go out, I fly my drone, and I'm flying by, supposedly by some CBO standards, and it flies into controlled airspace and brings down an aircraft. The person that has the standards is also going to be liable. I mean, that's how they do it here, even with nobody has this insurance either. It's called negligent instruction. So in most cases, when people in GA crash and kill somebody, the instructor gets sued. Everybody up the chain gets sued and screwed. So I think you're opening yourself up to some liability saying you're a CBO. also on that deal. So there are some hidden nooks and crannies on this deal.
Oh, for
Can't
sure.
we just have fun flying our toys?
But I think well, I mean, thanks Canada for shining a light on potential problems, because I think that's exactly what's happening. So we've got Canada with the I have to say potential grounding, because that email was never to see the light of day. I wasn't supposed to get out, and hopefully they'll reach out to me and say, "Oh, Gary got that completely wrong tomorrow," and I'll be able to print a retraction, and it'll all be lovely and everything will go away. But the fact that they haven't bothered getting in touch with me rather tells me that that's not the case. And I was amazed how that story disappeared over the weekend, and it's resurfaced now. I don't know. Alan did a video today, so maybe it's because of his video today, and I see it in a few forums. So I think it's now Alan's fault that it's resurfaced. That's what I'm going to say anyway.
We only invited him on here to blame him, you know.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Exactly right.
Hey, but while people are here, if you're not subscribed to Alan's YouTube channel, then you should subscribe. It's excellent, a totally excellent channel. He has news on drone stuff and related stuff, and a little bit of an insight into what it's like living in Canada. It's good. It's squirrels, especially the squirrels, man. They're the best.
Yeah.
I only showed it because Bruce said there's no such thing as a squirrel in New Zealand, which shocked me.
No, we don't have them.
Okay.
We don't have them. We have vicious, poisonous creatures like politicians, but no squirrels.
That's snakes, yes. But you don't have those either, do you? Do you have snakes over there?
No snakes, and only one poisonous spider and one slightly poisonous spider.
There you go. Not like the West Island, then. That's full of them, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a real pit of poison over there.
Yeah, Doverin saying documents and checklists do make things safer. Yeah, that's true. Yes,
yeah, but hang on,
true.
You've got to look at the basic risk level, don't you? I mean, this is safer. But when you're comparing manned aviation, which claims how many lives a year, with model aviation, which claims how many lives a year, the intrinsic risk of model aviation is so low that does it really matter if you're doing everything that the manned aviation? You don't need to. If you don't check your safety wires on a manned aircraft, or check that your controls are free on a manned aircraft, people die. If your controls aren't free on a model, a plane crashes and someone has to get out the hot glue. There's a huge difference. And remember, risk, it's about the possibility and the consequences. The consequences of unmanned of our toy models is so low that it doesn't matter what the probability is, it's always going to be low risk.
So hang on a minute. When I go and fly my model plane, I'm meant to have a checklist? Oh no, how did my planes take off and get back on the deck in one piece?
How can an 8-year-old possibly have built models and flown them like I did when I was a kid without the world falling apart?
But checklists are all good and fine, but use them properly. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it makes me smile because it's like, oh, checklist. But I don't know about you guys, but I come from the model flying background, same as Bruce and Gary, I believe, and probably Patrick and Alan. Before you take off, you don't have a checklist checking stuff. You normally stand with your feet. So you got the plane. I'm talking about model plane, for instance, here. You'll normally have it. You'll either secure the tail or you'll stand with your legs so the tail can't move forwards. You'll check the throttle. You check your ailerons. You check your elevator. You check your rudder. Everything's good. The engine's running nicely, or if it's electric, it's got power. I then will step back again and I'll grab the tail and just throttle it on the throttle, walk it out to where I'm taking off to gently, and then point it into wind. One quick little stick twiggle just on everything, just to make sure everything's all right. And then I punch it and it's gone. And it comes back because I'm flying it. And there was no checklist involved.
Well, there was, because you went, no, there was.
It's a mental checklist.
It's a mental checklist. You have gone through a checklist. And at one time in your early days, there will have been a bit of paper which said do this, but you've just committed it to
no, every time you stuff something up, you remember to check that next time. But I find the checklist is proportional to the model. If I get a little 200-gram foamy, I'll just pick it up and throw it. I won't even bother checking to make sure all the control surfaces are going the right way, because the worst that can happen is it'll fall onto the ground a few meters away and I'll have to go and pick it up again. But when I'm flying my 50cc 33% scale extra with a petrol motor and it weighs like 8 kilograms, I check everything before I fly that thing, because the consequences of something going wrong are much greater. But if you have a fixed checklist that you have to apply to everything, you're either over-checking the small stuff or you're not sufficiently checking the big stuff. Everything has to be proportional to risk, and fixed checklists created by someone who's behind a desk in a glass tower, they just don't fit with a proper risk management situation.
Now, I do remember a lot of these guys that were like at the FAA, they're like, I'm a modeler, you know, and I'm like, oh, you are? Okay. Well, we know. Yeah, I got the 40 sized ugly stick, you know, and I fly that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, you know, sure, you fly gas or whatever. What the point that Bruce is making. So I got my start in gliders. And anyone remember the Gentle Lady glider? Okay, so it was all balsa wood and monocut, and you spent all winter in there sanding and gluing and ironing. So the checklist, even this mental checklist, was I got 3 months into this thing, you know, and if I don't have my act together or know exactly what's going on, or it's not tested, or I didn't go through all of the system checks, 3 months is going to be in a hefty bag, a garbage bag.
Yeah,
because I was cavalier. But again, you go to the phone, right? And the phone crack, little glues, little packing tape, you know, and I'm ready to go again. So it is proportional. Sorry.
Yeah.
I do have to sort of, you know, Dr. is making a fair point. If you're writing your stuff down, if you're operating commercially, or you're testing as something, then you do write everything down, because then you'll truly know the cost of your operation as you go forward. Whether that really should apply to model aircraft flying, I'm not sure, but it certainly makes a lot of sense. If you want a professional career doing this sort of stuff, then it's going to save you money in your business in the long run by making records and doing that sort of a thing.
Yeah, from a hobby perspective, though, you got to remember that this is regulation by consent, compliance by consent. And if you make the regulations so ridiculous that people have no respect for them, then they tend to have no respect for any of the regulations. If you make a good rule set that matches risk, people can see and respect those rules, they will follow them. They will develop a culture of compliance. But if you make them so ridiculous, people will go, they're just stupid rules. I'll just do what I want. And that's the real danger. You lose all control.
That's funny that you say that, Bruce, because that was the first conversation I had with the FAA on the small UASR. You can have all the rules you want, but if they don't make sense and people don't understand them and you can't enforce them, you got nothing. And this is all off or airport operations. People, if you roll back under the regulatory thing, and you're going to remember this, Gary, and the rest of you probably remember this. Most of what they thought they needed for the hobby was GA stuff. I told them, these are off airport operations. You pull over, you pull the plane out of you guys call it the boot, we call it the trunk, whatever. Plug the battery in, fly around. By the time somebody even gets in the car and drives, we're gone. You're back in the trunk and you're gone. So this is a joke. They didn't listen. They didn't care. They applied the same let's say, thought process to the model aviation as they did GA. And
that's
why
Alan,
it's a total fuss.
Fiona makes I'll sorry, I'll let other people talk, but I'll just get through this one. See, the reason I want to highlight Fiona's comment here is very, very sadly, wherever you are on the planet, and so Fiona's in Australia, Bruce in New Zealand, Alan and Patrick in the Americas, and Mark in the UK, I'm in South Africa. Every single one of those places has vested interest groups that are a flipping big anchor on everything moving forward. A big anchor on model aircraft flying, and a big anchor or anvil on the head or whatever. I can't think of the right thing. The commercial drone industry. We've had a big one here this week about UTMs in South Africa. And they stood up a panel and they called them experts, and they were very far from experts. Very, very far. And then they suggested I was upset because I wasn't asked to be part of it. And as I put it, I don't consider myself an expert. I absolutely don't. And if you do, if you start saying you are, then you're in trouble. So that's why I wanted to put that up. But anyway, continue on. Yeah. Sorry, where did I stop with it?
Following up on Patrick's comments, Alan, how much of the advanced test, the knowledge test you had to do, how much of the stuff you learned was actually relevant to drone flying, and how much was basically obviously for manned aviation? Fill us in on that.
I can say pretty confidently, I did not learn how to fly safely from that advanced test. I mean, for example, you guys talk about like checklists and so forth. I mean, there was a joke, it's kind of true. They expect you to check all these details on METARs, clouds, and so forth on whether or not it's okay to fly. You know how you determine it's good to fly? You walk outside, you look at what the weather is, what's the wind like, for example. And to talk about like the documentation, I've never once heard one person who was able to debate me on the topic. The argument's always, well, it's the airspace. You put something out there, it's dangerous. You use the analogy of the road. How many things in life do we use on the road? Do you expect people who, like a pedestrian that crosses a road, to do an exam, to take all these written, I don't know, procedures? If people are riding a bicycle, do you expect them to know everything that a car driver needs to know? They just need to know basic traffic management. My turn to go here, my side on the road, my sidewalk. You should basically have these basic instructions for everybody. It's like when someone's flying like a drone for fun, for example, as a hobby in a field, why do they need to keep track of everything as if they're flying like a huge like manned aircraft? No one can tell me that. Or the same thing, people debate with me. It's like on the road, a bicycle shares like a road with a car, correct? So why aren't we asking them to get a driver's license as well? We don't.
Steady. Some people want to, okay? Which is very unfair. But Alan, you should get in touch with Dan, because Dan has big conferences and is a big kahuna over in Canada, and it can't be you must be very close. It can't be that big a country. You're probably neighbours. You probably live just down the street.
You can walk anywhere. Alan does.
I walk everywhere.
Alan does walk everywhere. So yeah, you can walk to his house. I'm not sure where Dan is.
I'm open for it. Everyone who tried to debate me so far, even like these lobbyists and so forth, they can't answer it every time I bring it up.
I'm going to answer the question for you. I'm going to answer the question for you, because the people on the bikes and the people rollerblading and all the rest of that, they're not counting on them to save aviation. What happened with aviation and all of this regulation, and I don't care if anyone wants to disagree with me or whatever, as some people in this call will remember the $82 billion forecast. Anybody here remember that AUVSI did? Most of the CAAs on the planet believed that drones were going to be the new wave of aviation, and it was going to save aviation, and it was going to grow aviation, and they would be able to make money off that $82 billion. Most of CAAs hired a whole bunch of people to deal with drones. Like I mentioned, the FAA, the UASI or the UAPO, when it started, I think was 4 people. Now the UASIO has got, I don't know, like 100 people attached to it, tens of millions of dollars budget. It grew the business. These people are sitting around, some of them are retiring after so many years, and they made a lot of money. So that is why no one cares about the bicycle. They care about making the money off of the drones. And I'm just going to tell you, it's not there. The money's just not there.
Do you know, if governments wanted to make more money, and they wanted to make money quick and easy, the best way to do it is make electric scooters legal with a license, make people pay to have a driving license, to do a theory test and practical, and then give them an operator, or give them like a registration plate for their electric scooter.
Remote ID.
Remote ID for that electric scooter, and therefore, in an instant, every government could make millions. And we're not.
Why would you want to do this when you can tax gasoline and make billions like they do here in California? They make billions on that. But anyway, I got to sign off. See you guys next week.
All right, mate. Take care. Cheers.
Over and out.
Well, I mean, isn't California? Isn't California going electric?
Trying to, I think.
There's going to be a lot out there, yeah.
But all of it, it sort of, yeah. Well, I was astonished to see, because I want to move on to this quickly before because we're coming up to the hour now. Is Aeroscope? You can buy them from Alibaba now. That great counter drone solution that used to be the purview of only suitably qualified persons.
But are they genuine or counterfeit counter drone things?
Genuine, apparently. Apparently they're genuine.
Well, yeah, they said that about the Gucci handbags too.
They do, but if it's but what I particularly enjoyed was the $30, 127,000. Hello, it was hang on. I'm trying to add him. Here he comes.
I was listening. It was such an interesting conversation. I thought there's no point me coming in. I thought I'd listen instead from the outside.
Did you now?
Well, I had heard a little bit about this email, but not actually what its contents were. And I thought, well, I'll actually listen now and try to learn something rather than participate on that one. So it's nothing to do with Patrick going. As Patrick dived out, I thought, I'll fill the spot. Hello, Patrick. It's not that I'm avoiding you.
We hopefully, for some weird reason, it's a complete hoax, and that's not a genuine thing at all, and none of it's going to happen. That would be the best outcome. But unfortunately,
it's all turned into crap. It's all true.
Unfortunately, I think it is, and it is an example. Sadly for Canada, it's going to be an example of what model aircraft associations shouldn't do around the world. They shouldn't roll over. And,
it's funny, Mark.
He's breaking up.
You're breaking up, Ian.
No, he's just muted. Your audio, your battery's gone flat in your microphone.
Yeah.
Can you plug your microphone in?
He's a professional streamer, you know. He's a professional, mate. You can tell.
Yeah, he is. He's got all the toys.
He does this for a living.
Keyboard. He's got all the stuff.
He has hundreds of people on his streams.
Yeah.
And there's always a problem. Two people on the streams. He's coming back. He's just rushing out to buy some new gear.
He's going to go get some batteries. Yeah.
That's what he does. He comes back with new gear. Oh, I've changed my microphone and that doesn't work either.
Yeah. Yes, he probably will. Well, I wonder what he was going to say. He probably had something very...
He was going to say this.
Well, here's the amazing thing. I mean, places like the BMFA, and I'm sure the AMA, and I'm sure MAAC and everyone does this, they are the people that teach model flyers for the most part. These are the people that where it's all right passing this so-called test for, proving you're safe or whatever BS they want to call it for the operator ID in the UK, or the one that's in Canada, or the one that I suppose is in New Zealand, or wherever else in the world. The actual place where you learn to fly safely is at a model flying club. If you're flying at a model flying club, this is where you learn to fly safely. You don't, and let's be clear, the CA doesn't tell the club what to teach you. It doesn't tell you anything at all. There's no instructions. There's nothing from the regulator. There's none of the kind of bureaucracy BS at the club, apart from club politics, which appear everywhere anyway. The people that will teach you to fly, that person will teach you to fly out in front of yourself. You will never fly behind yourself. You'll never pass your shoulders. You'll never overfly the pits. You'll be taught to check your aircraft, how to do it correctly, what you're looking for.
Not a checklist, I hope.
No, there'll be no checklist, though. This is the thing. There'll be no pen and paper checklist, because that won't happen, because you'll be told ailerons, make sure they're the right way. Check your elevator, check you got fuel, check your engine's running right. Basic control checks. They're going to teach you to fly, probably on a buddy lead. Although if you fly with me and I teach you, you don't get a buddy lead. I'll just take the transmitter out your hand because I'm a nice person. I won't let you crash, but I'll...
He licks your face before he takes it out of your hand.
Yeah. And then
let go of it.
Depending on how expensive that transmitter is, depending on what it is, either hit you early and run, or...
But it's my 12FG.
But this is the great opportunity that the traditional model aircraft world and the drone world have missed, is a symbiotic relationship in which safety information and training is handed on to a new group of people coming on, and they did it with me, Gary.
I went and saw years ago the local, years and years ago, as I was getting back into it, and I went and saw the local club, and they invited me in, and it was all very nice, and then they proceeded for an hour and a half to rip me apart. And it was just a bloodbath. And it's just...
Yeah, but that's fair enough, really, Ian. With yourself.
How can I fund these people?
Any of us would do that. In any situation,
I have to admit, there's one thing that does bug me about a lot of clubs, and it's no one club in particular I'm having a pop at now. I'll say it's just happens across all clubs in my experience. There can be some of them can just be too clicky. And as soon as you say the word drone, and that's what you're going to go and learn to fly, they blame you for all the new rules, right? And that is very sad. That's kind of heartbreaking, because the club I fly at, we flew helicopters, planes, 5-meter gliders. I've done aero tow, and aero tow is such great fun. Nice big tug, 5-meter glider behind you, up to 1,200 meters. And people go, "What, 1,200 meters? You can't do that." And I go, "Well, back in 2000, I could legally, because it was under 7 kilos. I could make that thing as high as I wanted to, as long as I didn't hit anything. But now it's, oh my God, you're going to kill someone. Oh no, you're going to crash that airliner. What a lot of poppycock. I want my glider back."
Yeah. This is the problem, that the regulators have repeatedly lied to us, saying it's only a matter of time before one of these drones brings down a plane. All aircraft are in danger because of these drones and things. We've had over 10 years of experience. 2009, I think I flew my first multi-rotor drone. So that's like 13 years of historical data to look at. And these predictions have not come true. So we had regulations back then based on those dire predictions. The predictions haven't come true. So why are the regulations getting harsher rather than more relaxed?
What was that other question about? There was a comment that popped up, Gary. It was like 3 comments ago. You just something about clubs and 5 years.
Oh, that was in AMA to have 5 years of experience.
Before you can get teaching. See, that's interesting, because 5 years, but that depends how long you go down to the club, doesn't it? Surely, because if you only go to the club once a year for 5 years, that's a ridiculous statement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But someone that goes every weekend for a year probably does more flying than someone that goes once every 6 months. So that's crazy. I mean, I've been a club instructor. I've enjoyed flying all kinds of things, and I'll admit I've crashed all kinds of stuff. I mean, I've written off £2,000 helicopters just from being a little bit silly, flying a bit too low. I was just too low. But yeah, it's crazy. The rules have gone crazy from what I've seen. From when I could fly in 2000 to what I can do now is just bonkers. It's ridiculous. And I can't say it's got safer out there. I can't say that model flying's got safer since the operator ID came in.
That's a fair point that Dan makes. There's a trouble with this audience. You tend to agree with them. That's why that is, if you have the numbers, and of course, and we can swing this back to the DJI Aeroscope and the numbers that those are recording. They're measuring the number of flights in the millions, and the data is there to support safe flight.
Do we think, Gary, right, the reason we see these aeroscopes suddenly become available is anything to do with remote ID or remote ID? Or do you think they're making them available on the market so they can be bought?
For places that are using them a lot at the moment, yes.
Yes, rather than it have to go through a sanctioned dealer that has to be done a certain way, you can suddenly order one for 110,000 on AliExpress.
Buy our drones and become a target. Yes,
but don't forget,
how much?
Claim your $30 off if you use your PayPal account.
Yeah,
it's very important to get.
And there's a bonus for new people, isn't it? If you join up, you get a bonus. I'm sure.
$130,000. Don't forget to claim your 30 quid off if you use your $30 off.
This is China. There will be the eSheen version of the Aeroscope soon for $59.95.
Hey, Bruce, I want the affiliate link on that one. If we get 5%, right?
Yeah.
Think, right? 5% on 100 grand. I'll take that.
Well, get one for review, Ian. You'll soon earn your money back.
You know, I genuinely looked at how much they were. If it was less than 2 grand, I'd have been tempted to jump in. But no.
2 grand.
I love it when a company creates a problem. When a company creates a problem and then sells a solution for it.
Sells a product to fix it. Yeah, you've got to give them credit. But it's been interesting, the whole remote ID thing, because you've obviously got the DJI. There's a lot actually going on the compliance side. You've got the DJI Mavic 3 version 2, which has sneaked out under the radar, which is the CE compliant version. So that's the one people are getting today, is the CE marked one, but it's officially labeled the version 2 of the Mavic 3. So that is the European CE labeled. Doesn't matter to us over here, but it is available now. Then we've had obviously the remote ID update for the Avata. What's been more interesting though is they haven't rolled a suite of firmware updates out for all the other drones. I was expecting like all of them just to boom.
They don't have to. They don't have to though, because that's the actual remote ID doesn't have to come into effect on legacy drones until September next year.
Yeah, but why do it on the Avata then? Because they still sell.
Because the Avatas were manufactured after the 16th of September this year.
Yeah, but so's the other Mavics. That's what I'm saying. They haven't done the same thing on all the other drones that are still manufactured now.
Oh, but so they don't have remote ID.
Well, or it was already on.
It was probably already on, because remember, those drones require a smartphone or a transmitter with a GPS to use them, so they're all pre-equipped.
So it might have been that there was an already thing. But I just found it interesting that there was this hoo-ha over the Avata, yet I think the real naughty thing they did in it, they just didn't offer downgrade. But there'll be a solution for that. There's always a community solution for these things. But the hoo-ha on that sort of died down a bit now. It's all calming. It doesn't seem like as many countries were affected by it. There were lots of countries complaining, but now people in countries, I should say, it is clear on the bench. If you bench test it after upgrading the firmware, it will lock you out because it doesn't know where it is. So you could be anywhere in the world, upgrade the firmware, and on the bench, try to use it, and it will lock you out. All you actually have to do is take it outside. Once it picks up the GPS, it'll go, oh, I know where I am, and carry on.
So that's the perfect time to spoof.
Yeah, but it was interesting because there was people in Australia, Canada, South America, all other places going, it's locked me out. And what people were doing was doing the firmware update, turning the drone on in their home and going, oh, it no longer works. Take it outside, it'll be fine.
Now, perhaps Alan can clarify. In Canada, I just want to get this because I see the direction we're heading. We're heading sub 250. They're trying to push us into sub 250. Now, in Canada, there's no prescriptive rules for sub 250, is there? It's just don't kill people and don't destroy their property.
Yeah, unless they specifically have a class F restricted airspace. So, for example, like a prison or something like that, or they specifically say no flights in general. Other than that, it's you be safe. And it's kind of like what you said. Nobody died, and that's actually one thing I find kind of funny because I wonder why is it people within the drone community is often the ones that are policing each other saying you're dangerous, because even here, sometimes you would have people come up to me saying things, for example, like, hey, you're flying this could have happened, this and that, even though I'm doing it safely. And then I show them the news, for example, look who actually crashed their drones into airplanes, the police officers and so forth. So why aren't you going after them, the people that are actually creating the accidents, not people flying it safely just to capture some videos or something like that, or flying it for fun? That's what I actually don't understand in that sense, in terms of the logic some people have.
Yeah, and Dan's got it right. 900.06. Those are the only rules you need. That covers every base. Everything else is advisory. It's just giving you ideas of how you can comply with that rule. That rule should just be the rule for everything when it comes to drones. You know, basically, don't endanger people, or don't endanger other people. Don't endanger other people's property. That's it. Everything else is just a means to that end. And so, why do they complicate things to such a huge extent? They want to micromanage everything we do from a desk in a glass tower when we're the people on the spot at the time, fully aware of all the other factors that might not have been thought of by the desk jockeys. We are the best people to make the decisions, to do the risk assessment, to determine what we can do, what we can't do without endangering other people and without endangering other people's property. So really all the rest, that regulation for the sub 250 in Canada is perfect, and it should be the benchmark. It should be the template for regulation of all drones everywhere. But the closest we've got is the UK, where if you do your operator ID and you've got a sub 250, you can fly it pretty much anywhere you like, as long as, again, you don't endanger people or property.
Well, bizarrely, Bruce, if you was to rewind the rules in the UK by about 4 years, 240 was the rule. 240 was do not endanger people or property, and 241 was do not endanger people in aircraft or endanger aircraft. The only two rules that really matter, like you say. The rest is all just
Aircraft is property, and the people in them are people. So you don't even need that second half. Just don't endanger. And I say other people or other people's property. You have a right to endanger yourself and a right to endanger your own property, but not other people's property or other people's lives.
Well, 241 is actually do not recklessly endanger. You cannot recklessly endanger. 241 is.
Well, you can do it safely, though. Safely endanger other people.
I wanted to pick up what Dover Cell Plates were saying, in that Salimine Time municipality has banned all drones. Now, Dover Cell Planes is your flying site within that municipality, and do they consider model aircraft drones? That's where I want to take that, because in theory, there's no such thing as a model aircraft anymore anywhere in the world. I think I'm right in saying that. They are gone everywhere on the planet, aren't they? So technically, if your model flying site is within that municipality, they've also banned your model flying site. And my follow-up question to that is, do that in Canada? Do you have to have a bylaw to do something like that? It would be quite hard to do that as a municipality in most places.
And can they even do it given that they don't own the airspace or control the airspace?
Yeah, a lot of places like a park, for example, they would actually ban you from operating the drone in the park. But technically, if you say fly from outside and you fly over the park, then they have no control over that because they do not control the airspace. So that's one way to get around it. And that's what actually a lot of people are doing. I'm actually surprised some people picked up on that, saying, hey, you can control like what people do in your park and so forth, but not when we go out and fly over. It will be no difference than an airplane, I guess, flying over like the area as an example.
Yeah. Have you noticed how petty bureaucrats, local politicians and bureaucrats try to assert that they have powers that they simply do not have, as you've seen in the last video? That's that they bully people. They bully people. And the trouble is most people just they use indifference. They just say, oh, they must be right. They're the mayor or the council or the whatever. That people have to push back. They just, as I said, look, this one here. That's it. Yeah, there. So confusing.
What's that? Oh, pushback. Oh, yes, it is, isn't it? We try to do that. Yes. We must get Dan. We must get Dan and Alan. We must have 2 Canadians. Is that over? Is that too many Canadians? I mean, surely that's most of the nation.
Is there a quota?
I think there probably is a Canadian quota. We'll have to
check the terms of use for this service. There may be only one Canadian.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, it's because this is an American product, isn't it? So they probably do have a Canadian quota within American products. So yeah, it's a bylaw was put in place. That's so annoying. It's flipping international as well. It's happening all over the world. It's terrible. It's terrible. Why are we not designing out the problems? What do you mean by that, Squishy? I don't think I quite understand that. Or did I miss? Or is that pigeon-based talk still, or are you talking about something else? I'm not sure.
No, I think he means an armed uprising.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. I think don't we have to have the number 6 in whenever we do that in it somewhere? Anyway, 3 6s. What are you blowing up on the bench, Ian? Before we go,
I'm trying to fix an air unit. I got a DJI air unit that has lost its OSD. Frustratingly, it's almost a new one as well. It's barely been used.
03.
Did you have a hole in the bottom of it? One. Did it fall out the bottom of the camera?
No, unfortunately, I was setting up a new wing and I was going around in circles. So I couldn't get the OSD working. In the end, I was like, it couldn't be the air unit, could it? And swapped the air unit out, and it was. So it's lost OSD. It's not the diodes. There's a couple of diodes.
Something's taken out the UART.
No, well, unfortunately, the UART goes directly to the main CPU as well. Yeah. Unfortunately, so if it goes, it goes. But I was just doing a bit more testing. I've been looking at the levels on an oscilloscope, and I think I can see something, but I need to understand a bit more. It's not dragging down to 0 volts. You know, a UART should drag from positive 3.3 to 0. It's only dragging down to about 1.5. So it's almost like something's holding it up. And
if a clamping diode's gone leaky because it's been overvolted,
Yeah. So, but I'm just I've just replaced the diodes. I took them off and it didn't make a difference. Now I've replaced.
But they'll have internal clamping as well. There'll be supplementary
on the chip. Yeah. And I have a feeling it's that. But other than that, it's just I've been away for a few weeks. I think I've got human malware again. I don't know because I haven't done a test. But the 5 people I've been around all have it. So
you're hard on your gear, man.
But hey, it doesn't exist if you don't test for it. So there we go. So
you've been ravaged this year.
This, if it is
the fourth time,
it would be the third.
Third time, okay.
But I had it this time last year. If it is it, but
I'll just make sure I'm running antivirus software here. Oh yeah, we're good.
Exactly. Yes, that's why I sit back a bit for you. Yes, you're absolutely right.
I'm not particularly rough, but I'm not 100%. But no, it's been a very, very busy few weeks. I've been traveling a lot and been flying some planes actually. I built the Ranger T1 over this great little aircraft. That
did you see that Scott LaRue or whatever is? You see the video they put up?
No.
The night one flying that? Oh, you got to go and have a look. It's brilliant.
Was it the Ranger?
Brilliant.
The T1 Ranger?
Yeah.
You know what? It's a great little aircraft just to get back into. And as Bruce said earlier, you don't have to care. If it goes wrong, it just hits the ground. I'll be honest, the biggest struggle I'm getting is LiPo batteries. I can't get LiPos in the UK.
Build yourself a lithium-ion pack. Perfect for that.
Probably going to have to. Yeah. I just can't get LiPos. There's a huge shortage of product coming out of China right now, and it's affecting all sorts. You know, there's a few products I've been waiting to review, and they've been held back as well.
It's a lot of love for you in the comments here. A lot of love.
What's it say?
No, so you don't need to read them. But just
I haven't opened it. I can't formally cancel that. Sure.
Yeah, just take it all as positive. Just take everything as positive, because when you're feeling ill, you only want to hear positive thoughts. Look, this was supposed to be the end of year recap and forecast for next year, and we've completely failed. So I think we'll abandon it. In fact, we're going to have one before New Year.
Do that in New Year, between Christmas and New Year.
Yeah,
we'll do that between Christmas and New Year, because it was too good an opportunity not to get. Because I'm trying to wrap this thing up now, because we've gone well over the hour. It was a fantastic opportunity to get Alan back. We haven't had Alan on for ages, and as Bruce says, tell us again, Alan, where exactly can we find your channel?
Oh, my channel is just Alan Yu, so youtube.com/Alan Yu.
And it's all things squirrels in Canada in the snow. And I believe you'll be heading off to the snow now. I think you said before you started you had quite a lot of snow there.
Gotta go out and walk because there's 30 centimeters of snow today. It shut everything down, the airports and so forth. So we'll see how it's like, and I'll show Bruce his favorite squirrel in the snow.
Did you have snowshoes or just wear sneakers?
Oh, I don't wear snowshoes. No, I wear just these waterproof shoes because I walk 16 kilometers a day.
No, I'm getting close. I'm about 10. So.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes I go for long walks, which are like 25, 30 K.
Yeah, so. Nice.
Yeah.
No, it's well worth following Alan's channel. Never follow Ian's channel. Mark's got a good channel as well. Of course,
I think CAA's got a warning out about Ian's channel. Actually, I think it was.
Yeah, they have. Look, he's.
And as for Mark, he's got a subscriber, haven't you? Didn't you get a subscriber or something? No, someone watched your video. It must have been by mistake. Never mind.
No, I don't get subscribers.
All right, it's time for us to go. Dear viewer, wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful Christmas. Be safe with your friends and family, especially if you're traveling, especially if you're in the snow, like Mr. Yu. Just be careful out there. And if you're in Canada, don't fly model airplanes. No, look after yourselves. Have a wonderful Christmas. We'll see you in the between times when I'll try and remember that we're going to make some predictions or make stuff up. And we definitely need more Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, where's that music coming from?
Copyright strike.
You gits. There's my gift. All right, guys, look after yourselves. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye for now. Cheers.